Good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Pulpit View. I apologize for coming on late tonight. We had some things going on today, getting some stuff together, but we are here, and I'm excited to be on tonight. A few announcements before we get ready to go into this episode of the Pulpit View, episode 11. One is I'm excited for next week's episode as well. Prepare for next week's episode. We should have information of next week's episode out by Thursday. I am excited to. I'm going to keep it a surprise until Thursday. Very exciting episode. Tonight's episode is talking about the value of the right community. The value of the right community. Man, I'm going to tell y'all something. Starting out as a young pastor, I found myself in trouble one time as an interim pastor, right? Got to tell y'all the story of the first church I ever started at. I mean, this is the first church I got my feet wet. Wasn't pastor there yet, but I got an opportunity to enjoy, got an opportunity to see what it was like to have people to look to you to make decisions. So I'm interning at a church in Enterprise, Alabama. Won't name the church, but I'm enterprising at a church in Enterprise, Alabama. Here it is. I'm a newlywed. Me and my wife, we are no more than a year in the game. I think I had opened my barbershop probably a year into it. So it's just getting into the formation of it. Can I tell y'all what happened? One particular time, I had been coming up the road now for months. I'm talking about, and I was so committed, so fresh in it. I'm talking about still wet behind the ears. All they could pay me, it was bi-weekly. All they could pay me was $75 every time I came to show up. Because of my late nights on Saturday, I would drive up Saturday instead of trying to drive up Sunday morning to do my studying, right? Here it is. I'm staying at a hotel. I am so grateful for the church that I was the youth minister at, because they helped to support during that time, and they would every now and then help and pay for the hotel room. The hotel room was about $70 by itself. Then during the time of interning, my car breaks down. Boy, I'm trying to tell you, listen, my car breaks down and I am renting a car. I am under the age of 24. And for anybody that knows about back in the day when you were under that rental age, that was a tax. So I'm not only I'm making 75 every 2 trips I'm going up there. So it's 150 throughout the whole month. But I'm spending up to 150 a month on hotel rooms. And then here it is. I am spending almost $200 on renting a car. I'm completely in the negative. So I had to tell y'all all that to get you up to the point. I get to church one Sunday, and it is their church anniversary. After I preach, it's a phenomenal day that day. I'm there. I'm staying for the church anniversary. Some of the deacons were like, listen, you don't have to stay, Pastor, if you got to get back. But we would love if you would stay for the church anniversary. So I'm like, sure. Man, I get there. I'm there, and I am serving. I'm trying to be hospitable to the pastor that came. And I got to tell y'all what happened, y'all. This is why you got to have the right community. Man, so I'm welcoming the pastor. I'm like, listen, I'm young. I'm trying to talk to him and get some wisdom from him in his area. I know he's an older pastor. Man, he starts to preach. I'm about to tell y'all what he did. This pastor went in on a brother. I'm talking about ripped me up to shreds. And I'll never mention his name because he still pastors. But I'm talking about tore me up to the point, but it was indirect, right? He said stuff like these young preachers trying to come up in our area and pastor the churches here. They don't even know anything about pastoring. I'm talking about saying all these different things. And I know he's talking about me, but he does not give any names. He doesn't say anything directly. So what I do, y'all, is I come and after it's over, I come back up because, mind you, I'm the pulpit conductor. I come back up, I act like he hadn't said nothing to me. I keep pushing it. I get on the phone with my pastor, and he's an older pastor, and I'm young. So I'm not about to go in on an older pastor, right? I called my pastor. He asked me the pastor's name. I told him, I just told him about the experience that day because he had asked me. And I told him, I said, listen, I said, it's cool. I said, this is what it is. And so he said, man, what was the pastor's name that came? I gave him the pastor's name. He said, it had nothing to do with you. He said, it had everything to do with me. He said, this was when I learned the politics in preaching. My pastor had won the position at the time of the president of his district, his wing. And when I tell y'all, man, this thing, I didn't understand the politics in preaching, but I also didn't understand, here it is, not everybody you can expect to build you. I want to help somebody tonight that might be a young pastor. Community is valuable, man. Community might be the best thing that you could ever build for a successful ministry life. Here's the reason why. There are some people that are going to put themselves around you they only see the value you bring, but they bring no value to you. I'll say it again. They only see the value you bring, but they bring no value to you. Then there are those that they have a heart for preaching. And this was the ugly side of preaching that I had never before experienced, right? Do not hold no ill will to the brother. I don't think nothing. I think he's a great preacher, to be honest with you. But here it is. In the moment, I didn't understand the nuances of pastoring. I didn't understand the nuances of preaching and coming into a certain area. There may have been something I said that he found disrespectful. I had no clue. But as I started to develop my community, I started to understand who I could be real with and who I could be genuine with. I had to tell y'all this because today I got on the phone with a new friend of mine, Pastor Leon Bell. Man, shout out to Dr. Bell. We were on the phone for a long while. I was joking with him. I said, my wife and his wife are kindred spirits. Here's what it is. Through a process, I started learning that you can build a community that makes you stronger as a pastor. And many times we're trying to do things on our own because here it is, we've been hurt in the pulpit by other preachers. Can we talk about it tonight? I'm not going to hold you long tonight, but we've been hurt in the pulpit by other preachers. There was a question asked to me the other day by a senior pastor. Garrett, how did you and your pastor develop such a close relationship? And why do you think a lot of young pastors are unwilling to sit under a pastor? And I said, I don't know if a lot of young pastors are unwilling to sit under a pastor. I said, but I'll tell you. I said, sometimes we feel as if the senior saints will not share the information and they allow us to catch the bumps and the bruises from pastoring that they have already went through. He said, what do you mean? I said, there are some things that you all see, and you will try to warn us or tell us not to go down that road, but you don't come in a way that we can hear it or receive it. I said, and here it is. I said, some of us have been hurt by previous pastors, and now we're shutting ourselves down. There's an influx of pastors that are now understanding the role of community and relationships, and they are searching for it. But the problem is, we are living in a time now where we have pastors that are running from community. At the same time, we have pastors that are building community. I saw the most amazing thing. Pastor Dates and Pastor Meeks, Pastor Charlie Dates and Pastor Meeks, out of Chicago. I hope you've heard the story. This is the value of building community and pouring into people before you can even see the true value they offer. I was at the E.K. Bailey conference, and Pastor Meeks, who pastors out of Chicago, he's telling the story. He has one of the fastest growing Baptist churches in the United States right now. He's telling the story of how he met Pastor Charlie Dates. Here it is. Pastor Dates is getting ready to take over his church, and he is going to be pastoring Progressive, where he currently pastors now. Here it is. He is saying, I brought him on as the preaching pastor. He said his job was to relieve me of preaching responsibility when I needed. He said, I watched him. I looked at him. He was willing to be sown into, and I saw what he offered. He said, and I knew I would use this brother again. And a relationship built there. And what is amazing from that relationship that I think is beautiful is that now he is willing, not only has he poured out into this pastor, but now he's willing to trust this pastor with a work that was once entrusted to him. And I think one of the things that we are seeing a dangerous place in our churches now is we have more pastors without community around them. And I'm not talking about without friends, but I'm talking about pastors they can be transparent with. Most of us know back in 2019, 2020, there was an influx of suicides in the church from the pastor's position. The question was asked in a conference call I was in. It was asked, how is it possible that so many pastors that serve every Sunday could somehow be willing to take their life? And I told somebody in this actual message, this group chat we were in, I said, here it is. I said, I question what type of community they had. I'm not talking about acquaintances. I'm not talking about fellow pastors, but a community they could be genuine and honest with. A community they could say, Pastor, I'm fed up. Pastor, I've messed up. Man, I failed. Man, my marriage is on the rocks. I do not feel like I am capable of handling what is on me and tasked for me to do. And I think the struggle that we develop and we see is, here it is. We start pastoring until the point that we're pouring out and never being refreshed. Nothing's getting poured back in. Here's the reason I mentioned Pastor Bell today. So after we're talking, Pastor Bell sends me a message of encouragement. And here it is. We were both talking. We're both encouraging one another. But he sends me a message that literally landed right on time. And it was an encouraging word, a word that reminded me of God's faithfulness in that same moment. But here it is. It was transparent. And what I loved about our conversation, where you had two brothers that were transparent about their ups and downs in the relationship of pastoring. And too many times when we get into these calls, when we are seeing folk at conferences, you know the rhetoric we hit. Doc, what your church look like? Man, this, how's this going? And everyone said, man, listen, God's blessing us in the house. Well, he's doing this, he's doing this. And the reality is I'm burnt out. I don't have nothing left. I feel unappreciated. Had a good conversation with someone that's a part of my community 2 weeks ago. And we were talking about the feelings of pastoring after the pandemic, pastoring in the pandemic, and the false expectations that we sometimes put on our members coming out of the pandemic. Many of us as pastors, can I be transparent with you? Many of us as pastors, we believed that our faithfulness in the pandemic would be rewarded after the pandemic. We believed that folk would have less trust issues. Some of us were naive enough to believe that we were going to walk into a situation where once we opened the doors, all of the congregation came back. And it was going to be a joyous occasion. We had the audacity to believe they were looking at us every single Sunday with waiting anticipation and saying, man, there's my pastor. My pastor is doing this. I knew that's my pastor. We thought we had that belief. And here's what messed up. Reality set in, and we found out we were pastoring humans. And then we started carrying the load by ourselves. But one of the beautiful things about having community, I would talk to brothers and I would find out they were struggling in the same areas I was struggling in, that their churches were dealing with the same struggles I was dealing with. And then we started to develop ways and unique perspectives of how to re-engage with our churches and our community. We talked about how to set up plans and how to engage our community on coming back in. I'm telling you, but it starts with making sure you have people that are just as invested in you as you are in them. I've said it before. There are 3 types of people I believe every pastor has to have around them. Someone that they look up to, someone that they look at, and someone that they're pulling up. Here it is. Someone they look up to, someone that they can learn from, they can glean wisdom from, that can help pull them up. Someone that is at the position you're trying to go in your pastoring. And it's okay to say, I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm not at the type of church I want to be at yet. And I'm not saying, you're saying, Lord, I'm not at the church I want to be at. But God, you have not crafted them into the people that you've called them to be yet. And I see this pastor who is so developed and put time in, and now he's reaping the benefits. One of the pastors, when I was in Prattville, that blessed my soul. Bless my soul, y'all. This is a leadership. Outside of pastoring, this is a leadership tidbit. One of the pastors that blessed my soul, Pastor Fred Gray, out of First Baptist in Prattville, Alabama. I was talking to him one day, and I was really in despair. And he said something to me. He said, Garrett, he said, I'm going to be honest with you, man. He said he had came to a funeral I had to do. He said, Garrett, you can preach. He said, and Garrett, I want to tell you something. He said, it's not the preaching. He said, what it is God's timing. He said, I got to tell you something. He said, it took me almost 30-something years to see what you see today. And be patient with God's timing, Garrett. He said, what you see today did not start off this way. And he started to tell and pour into me some things that were encouraging me in that moment. But it taught me to be patient with God because he's patient with me. To be patient with God's people because he's patient with me. And I want to help you out because many times we don't have anyone that can tell us the steps they took to get to their level. But then you got to have someone that's on the battlefield with you, someone that you are in the fray with, y'all can encourage one another. Y'all can fight together. Y'all can grow together. I tell you, some of the best preachers that have come to BMBC to preach have been people that I am on the same level with, because here it is. They can say what I cannot. Did you hear me? They can say what I cannot as pastor. I'm not talking about pastoral messages. I'm talking about they can speak up in an intricate way for you in love. They don't have to come in and degrade your people. They don't have to come in and tear down your people. They can just tell your people, listen, love on your pastor. It's that simple. But they have to be in the midst of the fray with you so they can understand what you're going through. But then you got to have somebody you're pulling up, someone that keeps you in check for your accountability, for your character building. We got to have it to a place where our community is fit with folk that we want to continue the journey with. Can I tell you the most dangerous thing I think in leadership, in business, is having people around you that have no value for where you're going, that do not encourage you in the process of your development, that do not recognize when you are hurting or broken. Listen, they do not recognize when you are at a place in your life that you are saying, hey, I can't take no more. That first pastor that gave me a negative experience was kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It was counter reacted with my pastor. My pastor, I didn't call him on the phone. We did our regular call. After I preached, he said, Reverend, how the day was going? I was like, Pastor, it was good. This. I ain't saying nothing about the preacher, because I was raised, you're not about to tear down no man of God. I'm not about to tear down a preacher, even though I felt he was coming at me, because here it is. He never mentioned my name. It was indirect. But my pastor was very in tune with me enough to say, Garrett, what went on today? What happened? And I told him reluctantly, and this is what he said. He said, I'll take care of it, Reverend. He said, I'll take care of it, Reverend. Because as a young pastor, I needed someone to cover me and protect me. I could not have had the conversation he had. His name was C.P. Noah. He was revered in the community. I'm at the state of Alabama. He could say it and there not be repercussions for him speaking up. But it was because he saw me. And I got to tell listen, this is to my young pastors. This is to my young pastors that think we are big, bad, and bold. It is okay to let God and somebody that is able to fight your battle. There are certain battles you cannot fight. Bible says this battle is not yours, it is the Lord's. The Lord will put some people out there to do just that, to fight your battles. I got to tell you, here's what one of the greatest stories I heard was from this senior pastor that told me how God sent somebody to fight his battle. He said he had to go to a meeting in the church. He said they were getting ready to go ahead and vote him out. He said they were ready. He said, I hadn't done nothing bad. He said, but they were ready to vote me out, man. He said there was no scandal. He said, but they did not like me as a pastor. They said I was making too many changes, and too many young folk were coming in and joining the church. Yep, that's what he said. He said too many young folk were coming in the church. And I believe it to be true because you could hear the congregation say, yeah. There were too many young folk joining the church. He said they were in the meeting. He said one of the deacons who were stark against me got up and start talking about this young buck trying to change our church. This. He said, it's going off. He said, and this older lady that never spoke. He said, she never spoke in the meeting. He said, she got up and she stood. He said, man, she was about in her 70s, 70, maybe 80s. He said, she spoke. He said, now this was a family church. He said, when she spoke, everyone shut up. He said, everyone shut up. He said, deacon shut up, everyone shut up. And she said, this young pastor's doing God's will. And we're not going to get in the way of it. This is what this 70-something-year-old woman said. He said, what happened, man? He said, this is what I did not know. He said, to more than half of the people in the church, she was related and considered one of the eldest in the family. He said, so when she spoke, they listened. But here it is. If they had voted me out, they would have had to deal with it in the family. And because they didn't want to have to deal with it in the family, he said, they made sure that in the church, he said, they did not vote that night. He said, slowly, I started seeing people try to trust me, and it started to turn around. And I got to tell y'all, that's a valuable thing. When you allow God to bring people in your life, in your community, that can help you with some battles. Not every battle is yours to take by yourself. God has not chosen to put you as a martyr for the church. He's already died for the church. You don't have to take all of the lumps and bruises. There are some that we have to take. There's no way around it. But he's such a caring God that he knows us well enough. And he's like, he can't handle no more bumps and bruises. I'm about to send somebody his way. And so I need you to hear me today. I need you to hear me today. You have to be willing to build a strong community. Have to be willing to invest. Here's three things. You know, I'm a black preacher. I'm gonna help you. Whether you are in the pulpit, you're in the pew, you are in the corporate room. Here's three things I need you to look at. Look at before you add someone to your community. Be patient. That's the first thing. Be patient with adding people to your community. Do not be, listen, do not, we use the word thirsty. Do not, I understand some nights it's lonely. Be in prayer asking God to send someone to your community. Here it is. Here's the reason patience is key. Because the people who deserve to be in your community will want to be in your community. You will not have to beg them to be in your community. I'll say it again. The people who want to be in your community will want to be in your community. You will not have to beg them to be in your community. It will be as if they were sent to be in your community. Be patient. Second thing is be discerning. Be discerning. Hear me. Just because somebody is pastoring a good church, just because somebody has moved up the corporate ladder, that does not mean they deserve to be in your inner circle. There are certain things we have as acquaintances, and then we have people that belong in our inner circle. And they might not pastor the largest church, but they may have the best pastoral leadership you've ever seen. They may have bedside manners like nobody else. They may be able to speak in a corporate room like nobody else. I have pastors that are not top 10 preachers, but they are number one, top 5 pastors. I'll say it again. They are not top 10 preachers. You ain't going to hear them pull it. They're going to probably speak, but they are top 5 pastors. I'm talking about the way they are able to influence others, to handle the task is phenomenal. I've seen pastors walk into a room, and I'm still trying to develop this, walk into the room, have a project need to be funded, and leave with the project funded. That is another level, and they're walking into a corporate room that doesn't know nothing about Jesus. I'm trying to tell y'all, There are some folk, and they're not someone who can go pull it. They're not somebody that's about to give you a tune. But when they go into that room, it's going, and they pastor. Be discerning. Ask God not only to send them, but ask God to show them. So you don't end up with somebody that is meant to be an acquaintance that you've allowed in the inner circle. Most folk that know me know I am character driven. You are not going to, listen, you're not about to go catch me slipping too quick. You're not about to say, Stephen, I saw you with so-and-so. I am protective of my community because I know that birds of a feather flock together. That does not mean I judge those who have fallen. That does not mean I say if you've messed up, because I am liable to mess up. Here it is, though. I'm not just gonna hang with people that's gonna pull me down with them. I'm only gonna hang with people, even some folk that I know that have had some slip ups and some mess ups, because God gives grace to us all. Here it is. They're the same folk that will say, Stephen, you know you're not supposed to be there. Stephen, what you doing over here? Get your act together. Why? Because I'm building the right community. Here's the last thing. First thing, you got to be patient. Second thing, you got to be discerning. Here's the last thing. You got to be forgiving. That's a tough one. You have to be forgiving. You have to realize the people that are in your community are just as human as you. They might mess up. They might make mistakes. They might even seem not to be there for you when you needed them. But you have to be forgiving to build a strong community. A community is very close to a marriage in the sense that if y'all decide to go the distance together, you can see great things come from it. But the reality is, it's going to require some grace and forgiveness. You are not going to be able to build your community and you're holding them to a standard that you cannot be held to. If you are human and you have failed, I'm trying to tell you, you have to recognize that it is part of the process. Failure is going to happen. They will mess up. They will not get you. They will not always be there when you call them. But they are there when you need them. So you have to make sure you do not lose the right folk just because your heart was hurt. There are some folk that are valuable that are going to do you wrong. I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm getting ready to leave. Someone that I care dear about, who passed a few years ago, they calls me one of the biggest struggles I had in ministry. They calls me one of the biggest struggles that I had in ministry. There was some stuff they said privately that went publicly, but none of it was truthfully. You get what I'm saying? There was some stuff that they said privately that made it publicly, but none of it was truthful. Do you get what I'm saying? And so here it is. When the time came for me to deal with it, I dealt with it on my own. But their intentions were not to lie on me. Their intentions were they thought this was the best aspect. And they only took it from their perspective without communicating with me. And I'm going to tell you something. For about 2 years, I had to deal with that thing, and it hurt me. It hurt me, and it messed up our relationship. I'm just going to be honest. It messed up our relationship. One day they called me out on it, and they said, man, something's wrong. You don't seem like you used to. And I felt some type of way because I wasn't. And one day, I was praying to the Lord and I was talking to him. And I finally addressed that person. And we talked. And he knew he was wrong. But the truth of the matter is, I had to learn to let it go because the companionship and the fellowship was more valuable than the mistake. And I want you to have the right community for a successful pastor. We know we need God at the center of that community. We need Jesus at the center of that community. But here it is. Who is he building around you? Who is he building around you? Listen, as we get ready to close tonight, I pray that your community is strong. I pray that if you have not built your community, if you are struggling in your community, if you are a pastor, this is what I need you to do for me. If you are a pastor, you're saying, listen, I hear what you're saying. I just tuned in for a quick moment. I'm one of the few people that heard you tonight. Here it is. I want you to connect with the Pulpit View. Here's the reason why. I want you to message me. And I'm not looking, I might not even be the right person for your community. I'm not even going to tell you that. I think I'm one of the pastor's best friends because I love pastors. I love young and old pastors. I've always had a great relationship with pastors. Here it is. Even when I wasn't a pastor and I was just a young man in the church, I've always loved the gift of the pastor in the church, right? Here it is, though. I might not be the part of your community, but I want to pray with you and let you know that there are some folk in your community. I want you to know that there's somebody that you can say, hey, I'm struggling right now. I just need somebody to pray for me. I don't need nobody to hear about my story. This ain't nothing that I need. I'm struggling in my marriage. I'm struggling in this area. I'm struggling in the church. I'm getting ready to quit. I'm getting ready to throw them deuces. I'm tired of being mistreated and disrespected. I'm out. If that's you, message me. Message me. Before you say I give up, let's pray together. Let's talk together. Let's ask God for his desire in your life. It might be God is telling you to move on, but it might be God is saying, I'm looking for you to grow deeper in me. And I just want to walk with you in that process. I'm not selling you something. I'm not telling you to come on for no purpose. I want to help you build a community. I want to see the best for you in this year. Many of us as pastors, we are still operating on empty from the pandemic. I remember when the pandemic first happened, I literally was live every single night for the first 6 weeks. Every single night of the pandemic for the first 6 weeks, to the point I just felt completely drained. Going up to church, trying to develop this, trying to start this, make sure my membership stayed engaged. And yes, there were times I felt unappreciated. I feel you. I got you. I understand. But I want you to know you're not by yourself. And God can bring you through that thing. God can help you feel his presence even in this moment. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's episode. Next week, got a phenomenal young man. He'll be speaking for me soon at my church. Love his story. I'm excited about this particular. I'm excited about every single one of my podcasts. I've just really enjoyed learning from these brothers and getting the wealth of knowledge of how they're handling being husband, how they're handling being bivocational, how they're handling pastoring. It's been something beautiful. Next week we'll be on time. Next week we'll be here at 8:30. This is what I'm going to ask you to do before I leave. This is all I need you to do. If you have not followed us on YouTube, go to our YouTube, Pastor Stephen K. Garrett. You can type in Pulpit View, like. If you get the opportunity, if anything I said blessed you, please share this video. Help it to get around so other pastors can find out. There's someone there, other Christian brothers can find out. There's someone here, other business leaders can find out. There's someone here that is actually talking about how we balance work and life, and that is possible. You don't have to give one for the other. You can actually do both of them. With God, all things really are possible. A 3-chord strand isn't easily broken. You can actually have it There's someone here. That's all I'm asking you to do. Like, share, subscribe. If you hadn't followed Pulpit View, go over on Facebook. Pulpit View. It's a brotherhood. We're building strong brothers in the body of Christ. It's a place for us to be real, transparent, and you not have to worry about it ever leaving our internet walls. I'm so grateful to have you again. Again, my name is Stephen Garrett. This is the Pulpit View. I hope that you've seen it from the other side of the podium. Be blessed.